My parents were living under my roof, eating my food, not paying a cent. But somehow I was the dead weight. My father had his face so close to mine I could smell the beer on his breath when he screamed, "You and your kid are leeches sucking this family dry." My mom was standing behind him. She didn't flinch. She didn't look shocked. She smiled, so I looked at them, calm, collected, feeling something in me finally settle instead of break, and said, "You have 24 hours to get out." They laughed. They didn't think I was serious. They didn't know what I already had prepared. Before we start, hit like, subscribe, hype, and comment your city. I love seeing where viewers watch from. This isn't just a story about kicking out toxic parents. It's about how long you'll let people drain you just because you share DNA, and what happens the first time you decide to choose your own kid over theirs. If you'd walked into my house a year before that fight, you'd have thought we were a close family. My dad would be sprawled on my couch, remote in hand, volume up so loud the walls vibrated. My mom would be in the kitchen, opening my fridge like it was hers, tutting about how little real food I had and how I never stocked properly. My son Liam would be tiptoeing around like a guest in his own home, sneaking glances at me every few minutes to see which version of Grandpa we had that day. Loud and happy, or loud and mean. And me? I'd be in the doorway, still in work boots, lunchbox in one hand, eyes tired, telling myself, this is what family does. This is what good sons do. They help. That lie lasted 2 years. My name's Ethan. I'm 34 now. Back then, I was 32, with a 7-year-old son and a mortgage, and I thought the hard part of life was already behind me. I'd grown up in a house where there were 2 rules. Dad is never wrong. If Dad is wrong, refer to Rule 1. My father, Peter, was the kind of man who thought volume was the same thing as authority. He wasn't always a monster. When I was really little, he could be fun, taking me to the park, pushing me too high on the swing, laughing as my mom yelled to stop before you break his neck. But even those memories have edges. The smell of beer on his breath, the way the fun could turn sharp if I said the wrong thing, the way he'd sulk if we didn't praise him enough for the bare minimum. My mom, Janet, perfected the art of passive-aggressive loyalty. To her, the worst sin was embarrassing your father. If he shouted, she'd stand behind him like a backup singer, nodding along, adding soft little jabs of her own. "You know how your dad gets," she'd say afterward, bringing me ice for whatever part of me had collided with a door frame or piece of furniture during one of his lessons. "Just don't push his buttons." I learned early how to make myself small, how to listen for the shift in his tone, how to disappear into my room when his football team was losing, or when I heard the clink of more bottles than usual. You'd think I would have cut them off as soon as I could. But the thing about growing up in a storm is you learn to normalize thunder. By the time I was 25, I'd already had my own big life storm. My ex, Jess, got pregnant when we were both 26. At first, we were excited in a panicked way, planning a future neither of us understood. Then Liam was born, and 2 months later, Jess realized she wanted to find herself, and motherhood wasn't part of the journey. She left a note on the kitchen table that said, "I love him, but I can't do this," and a suitcase that never came back. So I became a single dad overnight. I was working as a technician for a heating and cooling company, doing decent, but not great. I tightened my belt, skipped sleep, and learned how to make dinosaur-shaped pancakes at 5 a.m., so I could get Liam ready for daycare before my first job. My parents' reaction? My dad called me an idiot for knocking up a girl who couldn't commit, and my mom tutted that women these days just don't understand sacrifice, and if you'd chosen better, you wouldn't be in this mess. They babysat exactly twice in 7 years. The second time, I came home to find my father drunk on the couch and Liam shut in his room, coloring alone. When I asked what happened, Liam said, in a tiny voice, "Grandpa said I was annoying." After that, I found other babysitters, a neighbor, a teenager down the street, anyone but them. So when they called me years later, I was wary. I still remember the day my parents lost their house. It was a Tuesday. It's always a Tuesday when life falls apart, I've noticed. You don't get dramatic music and a weekend. You get a Tuesday when your phone rings at 3:17 p.m. while you're on your lunch break, sitting in your truck with the AC blowing half-cold air and a sandwich in your hand. "Ethan," my mom said, her voice already quivering, "we need to talk." I thought someone was sick. Cancer. A stroke. Something catastrophic. Turned out the catastrophe had been slow. 100 small bad decisions rolled into one. "We're losing the house," she said. "The bank is taking it." Behind her, I heard my dad shouting about those greedy bastards and rigged systems. I could also hear the faint, unmistakable clink of glass. What happened? I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling I knew. Your father's been unlucky, my mom said weakly. The casino, and then the card games with the guys, and then the refinance. It snowballed. Unlucky, my dad repeated in the background, outraged. I was due? That's how the odds work. That's not how anything works, I thought. We fell behind on payments, my mom continued in a rush, like if she got all the words out quickly enough they'd sound less awful. Then the interest, and your father tried, Ethan. He really did, but we're out of time. There was a pause. I could practically hear her gearing up for the real ask. We have to be out by the end of the month, she said. We don't have anywhere to go. My stomach dropped. No aunt or uncle? I asked. No friends? You could stay in a motel for a while. A motel? She gasped, like I'd suggested they sleep in a dumpster. Ethan, we are your parents. We raised you. We were there for you your whole life. A slideshow of memories flashed through my mind. Some warm, many not. But guilt is like muscle memory when you've been trained on it. We just need a little help, she said, just for a few weeks, until we get back on our feet. In the background, my dad yelled, Tell him we'll pay rent. We can't pay rent right now, she whispered, covering the mouthpiece. But he doesn't need to know that. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I have Liam, I said. Space is tight. It's not ideal. We'll sleep on the couch, my mom said quickly. Or the floor. We won't be any trouble. We can help with the boy. Your father will find work. It's just, we need family right now. That word. Family. The one they used like a crowbar whenever they needed leverage. I thought of my dad shouting at Liam that one time. I thought of the way Liam's shoulders hunched when voices got loud. But I also thought of my mom's cracked voice and my dad's pride. As twisted as it was, I thought of them, old and scared and facing foreclosure. I pictured them sleeping in their car in some parking lot and felt a rush of pity that drowned out my hesitation. Okay, I heard myself say. You can stay here, for a little while. My mom burst into grateful tears. I knew you wouldn't let your parents end up on the street, she sobbed. You're a good son, Ethan. A good son. In the background, my father shouted, I'll make it up to you. You won't regret this. Spoiler. I did. A few weeks turned into 2 years. The first month, I told myself I was doing the right thing. They moved into my small 3-bedroom house. My parents in the spare room, my office supplies shoved into boxes and stacked in corners. My dad brought 3 TVs, insisting he needed options, and my mom brought a dozen boxes of knickknacks that she spread across every flat surface like my home was a garage sale. At first, they were on their best behavior. My mom did dishes for 3 entire days. My dad mowed the lawn once and acted like he'd rebuilt the house from the foundation up. We appreciate this, son, he said, clapping me on the back. You won't even know we're here. That was a lie on the scale of the sky is a little blue. Within a month, they had slid into their natural state. Him on the couch, her orbiting his moods like a nervous satellite. They never helped with bills. Every time I gently tried to bring it up, hey, can you pitch in a little for groceries? Or, the electric bill is higher with 5 people, maybe we could split it? My dad would puff up, offended. You think I'm some kind of bum? He'd snap. I told you, the money's just tied up right now. I'm one good win away from clearing the decks. The last good win cost you your house, I said once before I could stop myself. His eyes went flinty. Watch your mouth, he growled. You're under my roof. I glanced up pointedly at the ceiling. Pretty sure it's my name on the mortgage. He went very still. My mom rushed in, wringing her hands. Ethan, why would you throw that in your father's face, after everything he's been through? He's a proud man. He was proud. Proud enough to let his kid carry the weight while still insisting he was the one doing me a favor. Then there were the comments. If I brought home pizza because I was too tired to cook, processed junk. No wonder the boy is hyper. If Liam watched cartoons in the living room, back in my day, kids played outside. Screens are rotting his brain. If I got home late from a job and couldn't read Liam more than one bedtime story, some father you are, always working, never present. It was like being pecked to death by ducks. They never helped with chores in any consistent way. Dishes piled up. My dad used 3 coffee mugs a day and left them wherever he finished drinking. Arm of the couch, bathroom counter, once on top of the fridge, because I forgot I put it there. My mom treated my pantry like a buffet, opening things, taking 2 bites, then forgetting them until I found Mold's experiments tucked behind cereal boxes. And they never helped with Liam. Not really. My mom would occasionally say, Go ask Grandma to read you a story. But 5 minutes later, I'd find Liam in the hallway, hovering uncertainly while my father shouted at the TV and my mom stared at her phone. Grandma said she's busy, he'd say quietly. Can you read it? So I'd read 3 stories instead of 1, my eyes burning, while my father complained from the living room that I was spoiling him, and no wonder he's soft. The worst part wasn't the freeloading, it was the way they treated my son. Liam was 5 when they moved in, 7 by the time everything blew up. He's a sweet kid, sensitive. He cries at animal movies. He apologizes to furniture when he bumps into it. He'll probably grow out of some of that, but it's who he is. Kind. My dad hated it. Stop acting like a girl, he'd bark if Liam teared up over a scraped knee. Crying never helped nobody. Don't talk to him like that, I'd say. What? I'm making him tough, he'd argue. You're raising him to be weak. He had a deep, booming voice that could fill a room. When he aimed it at a 7-year-old, it was like dropping a bomb. Once, I came home early and heard shouting from the driveway. I rushed inside to find Liam standing in the middle of the living room, tears streaming down his face while my father towered over him. What is going on? I demanded. He broke the remote, my dad snarled. Liam hiccuped. It was an accident. I just dropped it. It's cheap plastic, I said. We can get another one. That's not the point, my father roared. He needs to learn to respect other people's property. No consequences, that's the problem with kids these days. You're raising a brat. Liam flinched like every word was a slap. That's enough, I said, stepping between them. It's a remote, not a car. You don't scream at him like that. My mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. He's just trying to teach the boy responsibility, she said. Maybe if you'd listened to your father more growing up, you wouldn't be so soft now. After that, I installed a small camera in the living room. Not because I wanted to catch them, I already knew how they were, but because the idea of any he said when it came to Liam made my skin crawl. I told myself it was for my own peace of mind. Really, it was the first quiet act of war. Liam stopped singing around the house. He used to hum when he played with his Legos, little nonsense tunes under his breath. After a few months of my parents living with us, the humming disappeared. He asked, Is Grandpa mad? Way too often. He'd peek out of his room when he heard my truck pull up, eyes anxious, then relax visibly when he saw me. Grandpa yelled again? I'd ask. Just a little, he'd say, like it was nothing. Like he wasn't 7, and learning that being yelled at by someone you live with is a little thing. I tried to shield him. I really did. I set rules, no calling him names, no shouting in his face, no criticizing my parenting in front of him. My dad rolled his eyes every time. I'm the only one telling the truth around here, he'd grumble. Everyone else is soft. You're the only one who can't control his temper, I shot back one night. He took a step toward me, my stomach clenched in that old familiar way. My mom's head popped up from her phone. Stop, she snapped. Both of you. She didn't say who was wrong. She just wanted the noise to stop. Not the problem, just the noise. That's how you grow up learning that silence is more important than safety. For a long time, I told myself this was temporary. Dad keeps saying he'll find a job soon. Mom keeps saying they're saving up to get an apartment. I watch them pay off nothing but their own appetites. No job applications, no budgeting, just talk. Bills, on the other hand? Those were very real. My water bill doubled. My electric bill soared. Groceries became a bottomless pit. I started watching the checkout total like a hawk, putting things back when it climbed too high. I'd come home and find that the leftovers I'd planned for the next day's lunch had been eaten at midnight because my dad got hungry and didn't know you were saving that. I started missing small payments. Not enough to lose the house, but enough to feel like someone was tightening a belt around my chest. One night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator, staring at numbers that just wouldn't stretch, when my mom breezed in and dropped a pile of lottery tickets onto the counter. Your father thinks these are the winners, she said cheerfully. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, just a quiet crack. How much did these cost? I asked. Oh, don't be like that, she said, rolling her eyes. You always get so dramatic about money. We'll win it back. Win it back, I repeated. With the same luck that cost you your house? Her eyes narrowed. That's a cruel thing to say. It's a true thing to say, I replied. She pressed her lips together. We didn't raise you to talk to us like this. You raised me to accept anything as long as it was labeled family, I said. I'm unlearning that. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Her eyes filled with tears in record time. I knew this would happen, she whispered. I told your father that if we moved in, you'd throw it in our faces, that you'd make us feel like charity. You are charity, I said softly. You just don't say thank you." Her tears dried up instantly. "You're ungrateful," she snapped, "after everything we've done for you." I thought of the bruises and the yelling and the way they'd hung up on me the night Jess left, because some of us have real problems, Ethan, and felt something bitter rise in my throat. But Liam was asleep down the hall, and I didn't want him to wake up to shouting, so I swallowed it. That was my pattern for years. Swallow it, for Liam's sake. Be the bigger person, be the stable one. The problem was, every time I swallowed it, they took that as proof I could hold more. The night everything changed was, predictably, a Tuesday. I'd been on a 12-hour shift. It was summer, the kind of blistering heat wave that makes everyone's AC give up. We'd had nonstop calls from 6 a.m. My shirt was plastered to my back with sweat and insulation dust. My arms ached from hauling units upstairs. All day, the same thought looped in my head. Just get home. Just get home, take a shower, see Liam, maybe read one chapter of his dinosaur book before we both pass out. I pulled into the driveway, tired down to my bones, and saw the curtains glowing blue. The TV. I walked up the front path, stepped onto the porch, and noticed a small detail that made my stomach tighten. My trash can lid was half off, and a pizza box sat on top of the overflowing pile. I hadn't ordered pizza. Inside, the house smelled like grease and stale beer. My dad was on the couch, feet on the coffee table, surrounded by crumpled napkins and an empty pizza box that had once represented my next day's grocery money. My mom sat in the armchair, scrolling on her phone. The TV was blaring a game show. Dishes were piled in the sink. A sticky ring circled a glass on the coffee table. "Hey," I said, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. My dad glanced over, eyes already glassy. "About time," he grunted. "We thought you'd never get home." I took in the scene, the mess, the empty pizza box, the fact that Liam was nowhere in sight. "Where's Liam?" I asked. "In his room," my mom said, eyes not leaving her phone. "He was being loud. Your father told him to go?" My chest tightened. Loud how? "He was playing," my dad snapped. "You know, like he does. Running around, crashing his toys. I told him to knock it off so I could hear the damn TV. Kid wouldn't listen, so I made him listen." A cold anger started at the base of my spine and crawled up. "What do you mean, made him?" I asked slowly. My dad rolled his eyes. "Don't make a federal case out of everything, Ethan. I raised you, didn't I? You turned out—" He waved a hand, searching for a word that wasn't fine, but also not terrible. "You turned out," he finished. I stepped closer. "What did you say to him?" He sighed theatrically, like I was the exhausting one. "I told him to shut up and stop acting like a baby," he said. "He kept whining, so I told him maybe if his deadbeat dad spent less time working and more time teaching him some manners, he wouldn't be such a brat." The words hit me like a punch. "Deadbeat dad," I repeated. "Well, look at this place," he said, gesturing around as if the chaos proved his point. "You're never home. The kid runs wild. Your mother and I are doing you a favor staying here, and you still complain about the little things." "The little things," I said, like you screaming at a 7-year-old. "If he can't handle a raised voice, how's he going to handle the real world?" my father snapped. "You're coddling him. It's pathetic." My vision tunneled for a second. "Where is he right now?" I asked again, fighting to keep my voice level. "In his room, like I said," my mom muttered, crying. "He'll get over it." I didn't answer. I walked down the hall. Liam's door was cracked. I gently pushed it open. He was sitting on the floor by his bed, arms wrapped around his knees, cheeks wet. His dinosaur pajamas were rumpled. His favorite T-Rex toy lay on its side next to him. When he saw me, his face crumpled. "Dad," he whispered. I knelt down. "Hey, buddy." He launched himself into my arms. I caught him, holding him like I did when he was smaller, feeling the tremor in his shoulders. "What happened?" I asked softly. "Grandpa said I was annoying," he sniffled. "He said I was ruining his show. He yelled really loud. His face got all red. I tried to be quiet, but he kept yelling, and then he said—" He choked on a sob. "He said we're leeches," he managed. "You and your kid are leeches sucking this family dry." And Grandma she was smiling, like it was funny. I closed my eyes for a second. The words tasted familiar. I had 20 versions of them buried in my own childhood. Except back then, I believed them. "Do you think we're leeches?" Liam asked in a tiny voice. "Are we bad?" That did it. Something in me snapped. But it didn't explode outward. It snapped inward, into clarity. "No," I said, pulling back to look him in the eye. "We are not leeches. This is our home. I pay for it. I work for it. You are the best thing in my life, and if anyone is sucking this family dry, it's not us." He sniffed. Then why did he say that? "Because he's wrong," I said, "and because he likes to hurt people when he's unhappy. That's what bullies do, but it doesn't make what he said true." He wiped his nose on his sleeve. "He's family," he said shakily. "You said family is supposed to love you." "Love doesn't look like that," I said quietly. "That's not love. That's control. And I should have done something about it sooner." A realization was unfolding inside me like a photograph in a tray of developing fluid. Clear, undeniable. I had become the buffer between my parents and my kid. But the buffer had been too thin. I'd let their poison seep through because I kept telling myself, "They're family, they'll change, they'll be gone soon." They weren't gone. They weren't changing. And I had a choice to make. "Liam," I said, "how would you feel if it was just you and me here again?" He blinked. "No grandma and grandpa?" "Yeah," I said. "Just us, like before." He hesitated. "Would they be mad?" he whispered. "Probably," I admitted. "But that's not your problem. That's mine." Slowly, a tiny, cautious hope appeared in his eyes. "I'd like it," he said. "When they're here, it's loud, and I feel like I can't play." That was all I needed. "Okay," I said. "Then that's what we're going to do." He searched my face, looking for doubt. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Grandpa's really loud. He'll yell." "He can yell all he wants," I said. "He doesn't get to live here anymore." He nodded, not fully understanding, but trusting me. That trust felt like both a weight and a lifeline. "Can you stay with Aunt Sarah tonight?" I asked. "Just for a sleepover." His eyes widened. "With Milo?" he asked, naming her dog. "Yeah," I said. "With Milo." He grinned for the first time that night. "Okay." I hugged him again, then walked back down the hallway, my heartbeat oddly steady. In the living room, the game show host was shouting about a new car. My dad had cracked another beer. My mom was opening a bag of chips. "Dad," I said. He turned slowly. His eyes were bloodshot, his mouth already curling in annoyance. "What now?" "Don't talk to Liam like that again," I said. "Ever." He barked a laugh. "Oh, here we go. Daddy Bear is angry. What are you going to do, huh? Ground me?" "No," I said. "I'm going to protect my son and myself." He lurched to his feet, getting right up in my face like I was still 14 and he still had the power to make me flinch. "Listen to me, you ungrateful little—" "I am listening," I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised me. "I heard you loud and clear when you called us leeches, when you said we were sucking this family dry." My mom smirked behind him, chip halfway to her mouth. "Well," she said, "if the shoe fits—" I looked from one to the other. Then I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. "I want you out," I said. For a moment, they didn't react. The words hung there like they were in another language. "What?" my dad said. "I want you out of my house," I repeated, enunciating each word. "You have 24 hours to leave." There was a beat of silence. Then they both burst out laughing. My dad actually had to lean on the back of the couch. He was laughing so hard. "Oh, that's rich," he wheezed. "You? Kicking us out? Don't make me laugh, boy." "Ethan," my mom said, wiping a tear of mirth from her eye. "Be serious. Where are we supposed to go? We have nowhere." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You made choices. Those choices have consequences. You screamed in my kid's face and called us parasites in my own home. I won't let you do that again." My dad's laughter cut off like a knife. His face darkened. "You think you can just throw us on the street?" he snarled. "You owe us. We gave you life." "Sometimes it feels like you haven't stopped taking it back ever since," I replied. He stepped closer, towering over me. I noticed, distantly, that he was shorter than I remembered. Or maybe I was taller. Or maybe I just wasn't looking up to him anymore. "You don't have the spine," he hissed. "You've never had the spine to stand up to me." I met his stare. "You're right," I said. "I didn't. Until now." My mom snorted. "You're being ridiculous. You'd never actually do it. You'd never turn your own parents out like dogs." I looked at her, at the woman who had taught me to be ashamed of my own feelings, who had stood behind my father all those years, nodding like his shadow. "You have 24 hours, I repeated. "Tomorrow at this time, I want your stuff packed. You're not staying here." They scoffed. They rolled their eyes. My dad muttered, "Yeah, okay, tough guy," under his breath. My mom said, "You'll regret this tone in the morning." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just walked to my room, closed the door, and pulled out the folder I'd had in my dresser for months. Here's the thing my parents never really understood about me. I don't explode. I accumulate. Years of their chaos had taught me one useful skill: planning. In the months leading up to that night, I'd had a nagging voice in my head. What if they never leave? What if this is your life forever? What happens when they get older, sicker, and you're still the one carrying them? I'd talked to a friend once, my neighbor Sarah, the one who watched Liam sometimes. She worked in property management. Legally speaking, I'd asked her over coffee one Saturday while our kids built a Lego city on the floor. What happens if you let someone stay with you and they just never leave? You mean like roommates? She asked. More like extended guests, I said. Family, no lease, no rent. Her eyebrows had shot up. How long are we talking? At the time, it had been about a year. She whistled. Legally, that's not a guest anymore in a lot of places. You might have to evict them like tenants. Can I even do that? I asked. If there's no lease? Sure, she said. It's actually cleaner in some ways. It depends on your local laws, but generally, if it's your house, your name on the deed, you can serve a notice to vacate. Give them 30 days. If they don't go, you file. It takes time, but it's doable. You just have to follow the process. No changing locks or throwing their stuff on the lawn or anything dramatic. That'll just get you in trouble. I'd gone home that day and for the first time read the tenants' rights laws for my state. Not because I wanted to be a landlord, but because I needed to know where my own rights began. I learned that I could, in fact, serve them with a written notice to leave. That my lack of a lease actually helped in this specific nightmare scenario. That if they refused, there was a process. Slow, but real. The folder in my dresser contained printed copies of the property deed with my name on it, utility bills in my name for the last 2 years, a written notice, already drafted, stating that their license to occupy my property was revoked and they had 30 days to vacate. I had not served that notice yet. I'd told myself I was not ready, that things aren't bad enough, that they'll leave soon anyway. That night, with Liam's tear-stained face still fresh in my mind, not bad enough finally turned into too much. I pulled out the notice. The date was blank. I opened my laptop and filled it in. My hands didn't shake. I printed 2 copies. 30 days was what the law required. 24 hours was what my sanity required. I wasn't naive enough to think they'd be fully gone in a day, physically or emotionally. But that's how long I was willing to let their things stay spread across my surfaces. That's how long I was willing to let my son walk on eggshells in his own home. I put the notices in the folder, then I picked up my phone and called Sarah. "Hey," she answered, a movie playing faintly in the background. "What's up?" "Is the Liam sleepover offer still good?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "Milo's been asking when his little shadow is coming back over. Everything okay?" I paused for a fraction of a second. "Not really," I said, "but it will be." She heard something in my voice and sobered. "What happened?" "My dad called Liam a leech," I said. "To his face, and a brat, and a bunch of other things. Liam's terrified of him. I told them they have 24 hours to leave." There was a small silence. "Ethan," she said, "are you serious?" "Yes," I said. A beat. Then, "Good," she said. "About time. Bring Liam over whenever. He can stay as long as you need." "Thanks," I said, exhaling for what felt like the first time in hours. "Do you want my brother to come over when you tell them?" she asked. "He's big and scary. It helps." I almost laughed. "I already told them," I said. "They think I'm joking. But I might need something else from you." "Name it." "You mentioned last time that for complicated situations, sometimes people arrange for a police officer to be present, a civil standby." "Yeah," she said. "It keeps things from getting out of hand. You can call the non-emergency line and ask, especially if you think your dad might get physical." I thought of his face up in mine, his hands balling into fists so many times when I was a teenager. He hadn't hit me in years. But the threat had never really left. "Yeah," I said. "I think I'll do that." The next morning, I got up early. It was strange how calm I felt. Not numb, clear. The house was quiet. My parents were still in bed. Liam was curled up like a little comma under his blanket. I made pancakes for him, dinosaur-shaped, like when he was little. He ate them sleepily, a faint smile flickering as I put extra syrup on his plate. "Are we really going to Milo's?" he asked. "Yep," I said. "Pack your favorite things. You're having a little vacation." "What about you?" he asked. "I'll be here," I said, "doing some grown-up stuff." He frowned. Grown-up stuff sounds boring. Most of the time it is, I said, but this time it's going to make things better. While he packed his backpack, I called the non-emergency police line. Hi, I said. I'm the owner of a property. I've got 2 family members staying with me who I asked to leave. It may get heated. I'm not trying to throw them out illegally. I just want to enforce my rights and keep the peace while they pack. The dispatcher took my address, my name, a brief summary. We can arrange a civil standby, she said. An officer will come by at the time you specify, stay while they collect their belongings, make sure nobody gets hurt, and it all stays verbal. Thank you, I said. We agreed on a time in the morning, just after my parents' usual wake-up window. I wanted them groggy enough not to be completely on the offensive, but awake enough to pack. Then I called a locksmith. Can you change the locks on my front and back doors today? I asked. I own the house, and I need new keys. It's a safety thing. Sure, he said. We have a slot at noon. That works, I replied. I'd read enough to know I couldn't just lock my parents out with their stuff still inside. That could get messy legally. But I could change the locks and then let them in, supervised, to collect their things. After they left, those keys wouldn't work anymore. I printed the eviction notices and left them on the kitchen counter. Then I drove Liam to Sarah's. He chattered in the car about Milo and the new Lego set he'd seen on YouTube, his voice lighter already. Love you, I said when we reached her driveway. Love you too, he said, and his face got serious for a second. You'll come get me? Of course, I replied. And when you come home, it'll be different. Better. He nodded like he wanted to believe that. Sarah met us at the door. You okay? She asked under her breath, looking past my smile. Ask me in a few hours, I said. You've got this, she replied. Call me if you need backup or a witness or just anything. I nodded, swallowed, and drove back to my house. It was time. They woke up around 9. I heard their bedroom door click open, my dad's heavy footsteps padding down the hall. I was at the kitchen table with my coffee and the folder. My dad shuffled in, scratching his belly, his hair sticking up. He looked at me, then at the notices on the table. What's this? He grunted, grabbing one. As his eyes moved across the words, Notice to vacate. 30 days. Revocation of permission to occupy. His face shifted from confusion to disbelief to outrage. What is this? He repeated louder. A formal eviction notice, I said. I told you last night I want you out. This makes it legal. He slammed the paper on the table. You can't evict your own parents, he snarled. I can, I said. And I am. The law doesn't care about biology, Dad. It cares about property and occupancy. This is my property. You were here as guests. That invitation is over. My mom appeared in the doorway, tying her robe around herself. What's going on? She asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. You're not going to believe this, my dad barked. Your son here is serving us eviction papers, like we're strangers. My mom's eyes snapped to the notice. She picked it up with shaking hands and skimmed it. Is this some kind of joke? She whispered. No, I said. You said 24 hours, my dad mocked. And now this says 30 days. See? You're not even serious. The law requires 30 days, I said. Consider those already running, but practically, I want you moving now, today. The officer will be here in half an hour to supervise while you pack. What officer? My mom asked, eyes wide. As if on cue, there was a knock on the door. I stood. Hi, officer, I said as I opened it. A uniformed police officer stood on my porch, hands loosely at his belt, posture relaxed but alert. Mr. Turner? He asked. Yes, I said. Thanks for coming. He nodded and stepped inside, glancing around. Just here to keep things calm while your guests collect their belongings, he said in a neutral tone. My father's face went from red to purple. You called the cops on us? He bellowed. On your own parents? I didn't call the cops on you, I said. I requested a civil standby. Nobody's going to jail. Nobody is being dragged out. This is just so things don't get out of hand. My mother's voice wavered between crying and fury. How could you humiliate us like this? She demanded. In front of the neighbors, with a policeman at the door? How could you call my child a leech in his own home? I shot back. How could you live here for 2 years, contribute nothing, and then act like we're the burden? The officer glanced between us. Ma'am, sir, he said calmly, addressing my parents. This isn't about humiliation. Your son has the right to decide who lives in his home. I'm here to make sure everyone gets to pack their things peacefully. My dad pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you're so high and mighty because you've got a house and a little kid, he snarled. We made you. Without us, you'd be nothing. Without you, I might have had therapy sooner, I said, which is probably the only reason I didn't do this earlier. My mom gasped like I'd cursed in church. You're cruel, she whispered. We were desperate. We begged you for help. A good son would be proud to help his parents in their old age. Instead, you throw us out like trash. For a second, guilt flickered in my chest. Old conditioning, old reflex. I pressed my hand flat on the table and felt the solid wood. I was proud, I said quietly. At first, I told myself I was doing the right thing. Then I watched my son flinch every time his grandfather raised his voice. I watched you drain my bank account, my pantry, and my patience, and when I finally said, "Please don't talk to him like that," you called us leeches. I met my dad's eyes. You screamed that I'm dead weight, I said, so let me free you of the burden. His mouth opened and closed. The officer cleared his throat gently. You'll have time to talk later if you want, he said, still neutral. Right now, let's focus on gathering your belongings. Ma'am, sir, if you could start packing the items in your room, I'll stay nearby. Anything in common areas that clearly belongs to you can go too. My parents sputtered and protested, but under the officer's steady gaze, they backed down. My mom stomped to their room, muttering about betrayal. My dad followed, shoulders hunched, still grumbling under his breath. I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, letting the reality sink in. They were leaving. They were finally leaving. Packing took hours. They had arrived with just a few bags and somehow multiplied their belongings like gremlins in water. There were clothes draped over chairs, stacks of newspapers my dad insisted he was going to read, and boxes of my mom's collectibles that she'd migrated into every closet. Every few minutes, one of them would storm out with some indignation. You're not going to let us keep the TV? My dad demanded at one point, gesturing at the biggest one. I bought that, I said. With my money. You can take the one you brought from your old house. He snorted. You never even watched it, he muttered, hauling his smaller set toward the door. My mom, holding a box of knickknacks, paused in the hallway to deliver another guilt bomb. Your father has high blood pressure, you know, she said tearfully. Stress is bad for his heart. If he has a heart attack over this, can you live with that? Maybe if he screamed less at children, his blood pressure would be better, I said. And yes, I'll live with it, because this is not my fault. The officer stood by the front door, occasionally stepping between us when my dad's voice rose too sharply or his posture got too aggressive. At one point, my father tried to lunge toward me, chest puffed, hands balled. The officer moved smoothly between us, one hand out. Sir, he said quietly, don't. My father glared over the officer's shoulder at me. You're a coward, he spat. Hiding behind the law, hiding behind cops. You can't even be a man and fight your own battles. I thought of all the times he'd told me a real man took punches and never cried, all the times he'd made not needing anyone sound like a virtue instead of a trauma response. I'm not hiding, I said. I'm choosing not to play by your rules anymore. That's what being a man looks like to me. He muttered something under his breath that sounded like a slur. I let it roll off. He had no new material, just the same old script. By noon, most of their stuff was in the yard, loaded into their beat-up car and a borrowed pickup truck one of my dad's friends had brought. The friend eyed me like I was a monster. You really kicking out your folks? He asked in disbelief. Yes, I said. I am. Cold, he muttered. Colder is watching them scream at your kid while you pay for everything, I replied. He didn't have an answer for that. The locksmith's van pulled up as they were loading the last boxes. My dad squinted at it. What's this now? He barked. Locksmith, I said. For what? For the locks, I answered. His face turned red again. You don't trust your own parents with a key? He demanded. No, I said simply. The locksmith, a middle-aged woman with her hair in a messy bun, gave me a quick, assessing look and then got to work without comment. Metal clicked. Old cylinders came out. New ones went in. By the time my parents were ready to leave, they no longer had valid keys to my front door. It was a symbolic line as much as a practical one. When the last box was in the car, my mom stood in the yard, staring at the house like it had betrayed her personally. This was supposed to be a fresh start, she said, tears streaming. We thought we'd grow old here, with our grandson. We thought you'd be happy to have us close. You never asked me what I wanted, I said. You assumed, then you took. We're family, she sobbed. You can't just end that. I looked at her for a long moment. I'm not ending family, I said quietly. I'm protecting it. Her brow furrowed. My family is me and Liam, I said. If anyone makes my home unsafe for him, they don't get to be here. It doesn't matter if they're strangers, friends, or the people who gave me life. She shook her head like I was speaking heresy. "We loved you," she whispered. "We did everything for you." "You did everything you knew how to do," I said. "But sometimes what people know how to do is hurt." She covered her face with her hands. My dad slammed the trunk. "You'll regret this," he growled. "Don't come crawling to us when your life falls apart." "I never came crawling," I replied. "I stood on my own 2 feet while you sat on my couch." He glared at the officer. "You satisfied?" he sneered. "You got what you came for. The ungrateful son kicks out the old folks. Hell of a system." The officer's face stayed neutral. "My job is just to make sure nobody gets hurt," he said. "Everyone's leaving in one piece. That's a good day." My parents climbed into their car. My mom turned back one last time, eyes red. "Can we at least say goodbye to Liam?" she asked. "He's not here," I said. "And I'm not letting you say goodbye if goodbye is just another chance to hurt him." Her face crumpled. "You're cruel," she whispered again. "No," I said. "I'm finally kind. To the right people." They drove off in a spray of gravel. The officer gave me a small nod. "You did the hard thing," he said. "It doesn't feel good," I admitted. "Hard things rarely do," he replied. "But you kept your kids safe. That matters." He left. The locksmith finished, handed me the new keys. "Coil spring on your back door was wearing out," she said matter-of-factly. I replaced it. No extra charge. "Thank you," I said, taking the keys. They felt heavier than the old ones. When the house was finally empty, when the car sounds faded and the officer's cruiser turned the corner, I stood in the middle of my living room. It was quiet. Not the tense, waiting for the next explosion quiet I'd grown up in. A different kind of quiet. The kind you get to fill with your own noise. You'd think the story ends there. Toxic parents gone, kids safe, credits roll. Real life doesn't work like that. The absence of their bodies didn't magically erase their fingerprints from my brain or the fear from Liam's. The first night after they left, I tried to enjoy the peace. I picked Liam up from Sarah's. He ran to the car, backpack bouncing, Milo's fur still stuck to his shirt. "Did they go?" he asked as soon as he climbed in. "Yes," I said. "They're gone." He chewed his lip. "Will they come back?" he asked. "Not to live with us," I said. "They might visit someday, but only if they can behave. And if you ever feel unsafe, we leave. No questions. Okay?" He nodded slowly. When we walked into the house, he paused on the threshold as if expecting an ambush. The TV was off. The coffee table was clear. The air didn't smell like stale beer. "Can I turn on cartoons?" he asked cautiously. "Yes," I said. "It's your house, too." He flicked on the TV and kept glancing at me like he was waiting for someone to yell. Nobody did. That night, he fell asleep faster than he had in weeks. I, on the other hand, lay awake listening to ghosts. Every creak of the house sounded like my father's footsteps. Every car door outside made my muscles tense. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my sister, Hannah. "Hannah, what the hell did you do?" "Hannah, Mom is hysterical. Dad is raging. They said you kicked them out?" "Hannah, tell me that's not true. Hannah is 4 years younger than me. She moved states away after high school, partially to pursue her own life, partially to get distance from our parents. She has 2 kids, a steady job, and, until that night, a different version of our childhood than I did. Some kids become golden, some become scapegoats. In our house, I was often the lightning rod, and she was the one they poured their softer hopes into. That's not her fault, but it did mean we carried different wounds." I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "Me. It's true. Hannah. How could you? They lost their house. They had nowhere to go. You just threw them out?" "Me. They lived here for 2 years. They never helped with bills." Dad screamed at Liam almost daily. Yesterday he called us leeches and said we were sucking this family dry. "Hannah. He didn't mean it. You know how he gets? The old script, the same one Mom used." "Me. I'm done translating his abuse into, that's just how he is." There was a longer pause this time. "Hannah, you went nuclear, Ethan. You could have talked to them, set boundaries." I laughed out loud, a short, bitter sound, alone in my dark bedroom. "Me? I set boundaries. For months. They laughed. They ignored them. Yesterday was the line. Hannah, Mom is saying you blindsided them, that you never said anything." I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. "Me? Of course she is. She also told me last Christmas that Dad barely drinks anymore. How much are you sending them every month? There was a long gap. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Hannah, that's none of your business. Me, it is if they're draining you like they drained me. No reply. I took a breath. Me, look, I know you love them. I do too, in my way. This wasn't easy. But loving them doesn't mean handing them my life. I have a son. I won't let them treat him like they treated us. More dots. Hannah, Dad said you called the cops on them. Me, I called for a civil standby so he wouldn't hit me. Or worse, Liam. Hannah, he would never... Me. He did. When we were kids. You were little. You don't remember all of it. Silence. Then, Hannah, Mom says they're going to be homeless. Me? They have options. They can stay with Uncle Ray. They can apply for assistance. Dad can, God forbid, get a job. They're not helpless. They just don't like consequences. She didn't answer. I put the phone down, heart beating fast, hands clammy. 2 days later, she called. Her voice was tight. They told me you'd turned into some heartless monster, she said without greeting. They left out a lot of details. What details? I asked. Like the part where they hadn't paid for a single thing in your house for 2 years, she said. Or the part where Dad was yelling at Liam. Or the part where they were treating your place like a free hotel while telling everyone they were the ones helping you. How'd you figure that out? I asked. She exhaled sharply. I asked questions, she said. I also checked my bank statements. There it was. How much? I asked softly. A lot, she said. They told me a few months ago that their car broke down and they needed money to fix it. Then it was medical bills, then it was just to get through this rough patch. I wired it without thinking. They're my parents. Her voice cracked. I didn't realize the rough patch had lasted years. We were quiet for a moment, sharing a new kind of grief. The realization that our parents weren't just flawed. They were actively parasitic. I'm sorry, she said eventually, for how I came at you the other night. I was hearing only their side. They're good at telling stories, I said. She let out a humorless laugh. You know what Mom said? She added. She said, we don't know how this happened. We did everything for our kids, and now they abandon us. That's one version, I said. Yeah, she replied. Theirs. In the weeks that followed, the family group chat turned into a slow-motion car crash. Cousins quietly shared their own stories, borrowed money that was never repaid, guilt trips about not visiting enough, subtle digs at anyone who set boundaries. My parents tried to rally sympathy. They posted vague statuses on social media about ungrateful children and being cast aside, and the death of family values. Some relatives commented with sad face emojis and praying hands. Some sent me private messages. Is everything okay? One aunt asked. Your parents are implying you did something horrible. I sent her a simple response. I refuse to let them scream at my child in my house. I asked them to leave. They're upset. Her reply came quickly. Good for you, she wrote. We love them, but they're a lot. Don't let them make you feel guilty. Slowly the narrative shifted. Not for my parents, of course. In their story, they were still the wronged heroes. But in mine, in my sisters', in my extended families, the truth began to unravel like a pulled thread. We saw, maybe for the first time, the pattern that had always been there. Dad's gambling, mom's enabling, their talent for turning every consequence into someone else's fault. The realization was both freeing and devastating. Freeing because it proved what my gut had always whispered. I wasn't crazy. They really were that bad. Devastating because it meant the parents I'd wanted, the ones who would show up, apologize, change, didn't exist. Liam started therapy. I didn't force him. I just said, there are people you can talk to whose whole job is helping kids feel better when grown-ups mess up. He thought for a second. Like when you take the car to the mechanic? He asked. Exactly, I said. But for feelings instead of engines. He nodded slowly. Can you come with me? He asked. Of course, I replied. The child psychologist, a calm woman with kind eyes and a shelf of sensory toys, became a weekly part of our routine. Sometimes they played games, sometimes they drew. Sometimes I watched through the little one-way mirror as Liam described his grandfather's yelling, his voice small but steady. Do you think it was your fault when he yelled? She asked once. A little, he said, because I was noisy, and he said I was the reason he couldn't hear the TV. What do you think now? She asked. He glanced at me behind the glass, like he knew I was there, even if he couldn't see me. I think... He took a breath. I think grown-ups can turn the TV down, or go outside, and they don't have to yell. That's right, she said softly. You didn't make him yell. He chose to. Watching my 7-year-old untangle his sense of responsibility faster than I had at 34 was both painful and hopeful. One night, a couple of months after my parents left, we were eating dinner, just the two of us at the table, plates of spaghetti steaming, when Liam looked up and said, out of nowhere, I like it when it's just us. I smiled. Yeah? It's quiet, he said, but like, good quiet, not scary quiet. There it was again, the difference I'd felt but hadn't found words for. Me too, I said. He twirled his fork, spaghetti slipping. Do you miss them? He asked. I thought carefully. I miss the idea of having grandparents who are kind and safe, I said. I don't miss what we had. He nodded as if that made perfect sense. Maybe I can be that for my kids, he said. I laughed softly. You'd be a great grandpa someday, I said. Yeah, he replied solemnly. I wouldn't yell. Months passed. Life settled into a new shape. Without my parents' constant drain, my bank account started to recover. That extra electricity? Gone. My grocery bill dropped. I could actually see leftovers in my fridge after 2 days. The house felt bigger without their stuff. I moved my desk back into the spare room, turned it into an office-playroom combo for Liam and me. 1/2 dinosaur posters and Legos, 1/2 invoices and tool catalogs. Sometimes, on the drive home from work, I'd have a moment of panic. What mood is Dad in? Did he yell at Liam today? Is Mom sulking? Before remembering, they're gone. I'd arrive home to find Liam sprawled on the rug with his toys, or at the table coloring, or watching a show at a reasonable volume. He'd run to the door, hair messy, eyes bright. Dad! Hey, buddy. That was it. No eggshells, no forced greetings to people who saw me as a resource. Not a person. My parents didn't contact me directly after they left. Pride, I guess. Or strategy. They went through Hannah instead. Hannah told me they'd bounced from one relative to another, each stay shorter than the last. Uncle Ray let them stay 2 weeks before some incident over money. A cousin hosted them for a month, then suddenly had to ask them to go, after Dad borrowed their credit card. They're burning bridges everywhere, she said. I don't know what they expect to happen. I think they expect someone to finally cave and give them everything, I said, like always. 3 months after they left my house, I got a message. Not a call, not an in-person visit, an email, subject line. We need to talk from Janet and Peter Turner. No greeting, no dear Ethan, just, we've had some time to think. What you did was very hurtful. We can't believe you turned your back on your own parents. However, we are willing to put it behind us and start fresh. We are currently struggling to find a stable place. Rents are high. Your father's health is not good. We feel it would be best for all of us if we move back in with you temporarily until we get back on our feet. We would like our old room back. We will help more this time. We will also be a positive influence on Liam, if you let us. As your parents, we deserve respect and care in our old age. We hope you will do the right thing. Please respond ASAP so we can make arrangements. Mom and Dad? I stared at the screen. It was remarkable how little had changed in their minds. In their version of the story, I had turned my back. They were willing to put it behind us, like they were offering me a gift. They were struggling, so the natural solution was me. There was no apology. No, we understand why you asked us to leave. No, we're sorry we hurt your son. Just, we're ready for you to take care of us again. In a twisted way, it was almost comforting. At least they were consistent. I thought about ignoring the email, just deleting it and moving on. But I've learned that silence can be read as permission, as indecision. I didn't want there to be any doubt. I took a breath and started typing. Mom, Dad, I got your email. I'm sorry you're struggling. I truly hope you find a stable situation that works for you. I also hope Dad gets the health care he needs. But I need to be very clear. You will not be moving back into my house. The time you lived here was extremely damaging for me and for Liam. You did not contribute financially, you did not respect our space, and you did not treat my son with kindness or care. When I asked you to stop yelling at him, you called us leeches sucking this family dry. That's not something I can put behind us, just because you'd like a place to stay. I am a father first. My first responsibility is to protect my son, even if that means protecting him from my own parents. I wish you healing. I wish you accountability. but I will not sacrifice my child's safety or my own mental health so you can avoid the consequences of your actions. Do not ask again. Ethan. I hovered over the send button for a second. My heart was pounding. My hands were steady. I clicked. Message sent. For the first time in my life, I had drawn a clear boundary with my parents and enforced it. No cushion, no hedging, no maybe someday, just no. That night, Liam and I ate dinner at the table together, like we always did. He told me about a project they were doing at school where they had to draw their families. I drew you and me, he said, showing me the paper. Stick figure version of me with spiky hair. Stick figure him with big shoes. Nice, I said. We look good. He pointed to a small brown circle above us. That's Milo, he said. He's in our family, too. Of course, I said solemnly. Essential member. He giggled. There's a kid in my class who drew like 50 people, he added. Grandmas and grandpas and cousins and everything. How'd that make you feel? I asked. He shrugged. Tired, he said. That's a lot of birthdays to remember. I laughed. Do you wish you had more people in your picture? I asked carefully. He thought for a moment. I like our family, he said. It's small, but it's nice. He squinted, searching for a word. Safe, he said finally. It's safe. A lump rose in my throat. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I'm glad it feels that way, I said. We finished eating, then did dishes together, me washing, him drying. The routine felt almost sacred in its simplicity. No one shouted. No one criticized how much water we used or what brand of soap I bought. No one stomped through the kitchen expecting to be served. Just us. Later, after I tucked him into bed and turned off his dinosaur lamp, I stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to the gentle hum of the house. No TV blaring at max volume, no heavy footsteps, no muttered complaints, just the quiet we were learning to trust. I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. The email notification icon was still glowing on my phone. No response from my parents yet. Maybe they'd fire back a screed about how ungrateful I was. Maybe they'd try to show up. Maybe they'd talk about me behind my back to anyone who'd listen. They'd do what they always did. But I didn't have to open my door. I didn't have to open my ears. I didn't have to open my life. I grabbed a magnet from the fridge, one Liam had made in kindergarten, a lumpy star with his name on it, and pinned his family drawing to the door. Stick figure me, stick figure him, Milo the dog. 3 crooked smiles, no grandparents, no ghosts, not empty, full. I stepped back and looked at it. My parents had spent their whole lives telling me that family was everything, that you owed them no matter what, that blood came first, last, and always. What they never understood was that family isn't the people who share your DNA. It's the people you're safe with, the people who don't call you a burden when you're tired, the people you can build a home with, not just live in one alongside. They were right about one thing, though. There had been dead weight in my house. It just wasn't me. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, a thought settled in my chest, solid and sure. I didn't lose family that day. I removed the people who pretended to be one,